This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. If you haven't heard about this train derailment in Pennsylvania, it's very eerily similar to many of the other train derailments that all conveniently seem to be going off the tracks or running into one another as if we're playing with toy trains, literally. And of course, dumping diesel, plastic pebble, all sorts of crap into our water supply. And of course, conveniently, this isn't someone's backyard that has a pond in it. These water supplies that they're dumping this poison into, of course, all seem to connect to the biggest, largest water resources in the United States of America. You know, the water supply that the majority of us drink from, unless you have well water. So I'm talking about city water and large suburban populations that depend on this water, which of course, like China, eventually they'll say, hey, they'll shut all the water off, they'll gate all the water up, and they'll force you to have their bottled water, of course, which will have just as bad of chemicals in it anyway. But this is for them to gain more control over the water. So I'm going to play for you this video that was exclusive on the website. I want you to know that I'm putting some of these videos up from the website here on YouTube temporarily because I want you to see some of the content that I have on the website in hopes that you'll join the website at callforanuprising.com. It's $2.99 a month, but just 10 cents a day. And again, if you're somebody who doesn't really like this content, or it's not worth it to you, that's totally understandable. The website is so I can speak uncensored and don't have to deal with censorship in general. But if you do like these videos and you do like the stuff that I say, I implore you now, because I'm not going to be uploading on this channel for much longer, to subscribe to my other channel, Nations Conspire, if you haven't yet. I'm going to be uploading videos just like the one you're about to watch and many other things that are going on in the world. A lot of these DEWs. There's a lot of stuff I don't hold back on over on Nations Conspire. It's my brand new channel. There's barely anybody subscribed, but trust me, you want to subscribe now. You don't want to miss out any more on this content. It's important that you subscribe if you still want to see my work. If you don't want to see it, that's fine. I don't know why you'd be watching at this point, but if you're someone who's listened and you keep hearing me say it and you think you're subscribed, double check. And if you're someone who's listened and you're just kind of zone out when I say this stuff, don't zone out. Because there's a lot of people out there that are looking for my content and can't find it, and I can't reach out to them because my mailing list has been compromised where I email people so they know where I'm uploading. It's been compromised by Google employees. So I don't know which ones they are. They're using their personal accounts. And when I send out email blasts about new channels, they terminate the channel within hours. So now this is the only channel that was never advertised by me in any of the emails, which is why this channel is still standing. So that's why it's very imperative now that you sub to my other channel. That's where I'll be uploading starting next week. So subscribe to it now. Here is the video. And again, I'm only going to leave it up for a few hours, so watch it now about what just happened in Pennsylvania. Thanks again.
YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
6:34 right now. An investigation is underway along cleanup after a series of collisions involving 3 Norfolk Southern trains caused a derailment along the Lehigh River in Northampton County, Pennsylvania on Saturday. The NTSB says an eastbound train collided with a stop train on the same track, causing that. Well, it caused wreckage to spill into and onto the westbound track where it was hit by a 3rd train. That collision caused the derailment. Right now, we're not sure just how many cars were involved in the accident. Police say there was a diesel fuel spill into the river and containment booms are used. And police say there was a spill of plastic pellets, but Norfolk Southern says they mainly spilled on the ground and not in the waterway. Officials say there is no danger to the public and no injuries were reported. The Virginia General Assembly is taking steps to improve rail safety and prevent derailments such as that one. It's part of an effort across the nation sparked by the February 2023 derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. The 2-person crew bill is the first railroad safety bill to pass the Virginia General Assembly in more than a decade. It will require that 2 people operate a train at all times. Delegate Shelley Simmons carried the bill in the House. In a statement, she says the 2-person crew will allow someone to respond to emergencies and decouple the train if first responders need to get a through crossing. And says it's critical in the event of a derailment because the conductor has the paperwork about any hazardous materials on board and coordinates with emergency services. She tells us the bill has strong support in the labor community and the SMART union, which represents rail workers nationwide. But Shelley says the bill isn't just for the workers, it's for the safety of Virginians.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show, exclusively here on a call for an uprising.com. Oops, it looks like Vanguard did it again because we have another train derailment. Another train derailment that doesn't make national news. It's not a big story because, it doesn't really fit into any agendas. All it does is inform people that there could be diesel fuel in a large river, which of course is responsible for the water supply for millions of people, because the Lehigh River, which is affected by this train derailment, of course, goes into, once again, the Delaware River. Now, we can start here because you heard the guy talking about in the video. Who's responsible for this, right? I don't know. Who do you guys think is responsible for it? I mean, in a modern era where trains pretty much drive themselves, where technology is so advanced that you would think it'd be nearly impossible for trains to crash into one another. I mean, maybe we can blame the company who's responsible for the train, which is Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern, the same people who owned the train that derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, the hazardous materials, that big black smoke bomb, conveniently is Norfolk Southern, who owns this train. So this company who owns both trains happened to have this problem where the train just derailed, dumped chemicals into water, caused martial law temporarily in East Palestine, Ohio. And of course, who owns Norfolk Southern? No other than Vanguard. For anybody out there wondering about Vanguard, of course, Vanguard pretty much owns everything. Vanguard has their hand in a lot of real estate, a lot of land, a lot of farmland. Vanguard has their hand in the railroad industry. So agriculture, you have agriculture, you also have water supply. Vanguard is responsible for a large portion of companies that are involved in the water industry. So if you actually watch how these big companies are playing it, how this is playing out with large corporations like Vanguard and of course BlackRock, and of course there's a handful of other ones. What we can clearly see here is that if you're going to poison and contaminate water supplies, the best way, according to these people, would clearly be to derain trails that are carrying toxic chemicals and then dumping them into these large banks of water, these large rivers that conveniently connect to massive amounts of water supply, right? So the Lehigh River, you might say, well, it's the Lehigh River. What's the big deal? Well, when you dump enough diesel fuel in there, and then that river goes all the way down to the Delaware River, then suddenly you're talking about millions upon millions of people who are suddenly victimized by contaminated water, right? Hundreds of thousands of people get their direct water supply in counties surrounding the Lehigh River from the Lehigh River. So you might say, well, that's not really a big deal, just like East Palestine, right? People are like, oh, it wasn't really a big deal. Oh, well, the East Palestine water that was contaminated went directly into the Ohio River, which is one of the largest providers of water in the United States of America. So is the Delaware River. So the Lehigh River gets contaminated by who knows how many gallons really were poured into here. They're like, oh, it trickled in, and plastic pellets too. So we can get some more plastic in the water because that's what everybody needs, more plastics in our food. So we get plastic in the water and we get diesel fuel in the water. And then of course they go, well, it's the Lehigh River. It's only, a small population, hundreds of thousands. And then of course it trickles out to the Delaware River, which is the drinking supply of about 15 million people. So that's how this whole thing works, right? If people are paying attention, that's how this whole thing works. And Lehigh River is about 103 miles long for anybody out there that's wondering. So what they're doing is they're poisoning water in so many different ways, right? We know they're poisoning us from the skies. We know that the air quality is also something they've been poisoning in East Palestine. The main concern people had was the air quality, which was totally poisoned. But at the same time, that black smoke trickled all the way into all of those water into that Ohio River water supply. So the National Transport Safety Board is investigating the derailment. involving 3 Norfolk Southern trains. I don't know if you really need to invest any further. I mean, what are the odds? This is like if a United plane in 2023, say there's a United plane carrying, a lot of people. I mean, it doesn't even need to be carrying a lot of people. Let's say a United plane crashed from the sky, okay, and fell in East Palestine. Let's replace train, right, with airplane. Okay, and everyone's like, whoa, did you know that United plane fell out of the sky and it landed right in East Palestine and there's a big black cloud of smoke? Okay. If the same thing happened with the United flight in 2024, literally 1 year apart, because that was February 2023, we're talking March 2nd, 2024, so within 1 year for the most part, then another United plane had crashed in the state of Pennsylvania, which is one over from Ohio, right in the middle of nowhere. People be like, this is insane, right? How did 2 United planes crash? Now, even if it was another airplane crash, people might not be super suspicious, but we're talking about Norfolk Southern is like the equivalent of, like a United airline. Like, this isn't some rinky-dink private airplane. This is a massive freight railroad operating company. Okay, the other big one I believe is CSX. But this is a big one, right? So my point being about the United planes, people will be like, I'll never fly on United again. We got to get you. Okay, well, I get it that these aren't passenger trains, these Norfolk, but we're talking about chemicals, toxic chemicals, fuel, all this stuff that these trains carry. Okay, you don't just randomly go off the track. You don't just randomly crash into another train. This isn't bumper cars. Okay, we're not playing Mario Kart. We're talking about trains. They're not, and by the way, let's think even, if we want to even use more common sense, these trains are not running at 1,000 miles per hour, okay? These trains have brakes. These trains could slow down if they see other trains on tracks that are off the tracks. They also have the technology to be aware of this. Vanguard owns Norfolk, okay? And the net worth of Vanguard is 8.1 trillion US dollars. 8.1 trillion, which I forget, what is the national debt? Isn't it 33 trillion or is it 333 trillion? Whatever the make-believe national debt is. So they owe more than the national, I mean, they're up there with around more than 1/3 away from the national debt at 8.1 trillion in profit, right? So you think they're just running these trains around that are carrying all of this hazardous material? And they're like, oh yeah, whatever, we're, train crash, no big deal. No big deal. No, they're deliberately doing this because now they have another way to get control of the civilians. I talk about the food supply and how they need to get control of the food supply, and they're doing, right? We've seen for years now, Monsanto Dirt, what they've done to farmers. You could go back way before COVID and see the attacks on farmers. We've seen, obviously, the government's buying up all of our farmland, China, et cetera. Bill Gates, these, these satanic scumbags who are buying up farmland. They're doing this so they can have control over the farmland so civilians will never have access to the farmland, or to farm on their own, or to become independent from this, what they're trying to force everyone into, right? Secondly, of course, we know chemtrails and all the other things that they're doing to make it difficult for farmers to farm, right? Chemtrailing, blocking the sun, etc. Then, of course, with COVID, we saw our government say, hey, let's kill off our farm supplies, burn your crops, because it's more important that you burn your crops so people don't get a cough, so we'll weigh the pros and cons between starving to death, etc. Now we see Texas and other places where they're burning livestock alive because they don't want you to be able to eat that. So everybody thinks about the food, but they forget about the water. So what do you think they're going to do? They're, yes, they drain a lot of these water reservoirs. You're going to expect to see more of this stuff. And then they go, oh, did you hear the climate? What? Yeah, there's droughts. Oh, can't you cloud seed to make it rain? No, there's droughts. We don't know what that is. Wink, wink. No, there's droughts. So all these water reservoirs are drying up. Huh? Oh, okay. So suddenly all these water reservoirs are drying up for the first time in human history. Nobody's suspicious about that. And then you go, well, whatever, we have all these other places. Oh, then suddenly they make the water undrinkable in a lot of locations. And they're going to continue to do this. Now, you might say, well, they haven't shut off the Ohio River. They haven't shut off the Delaware, blah, blah, blah. People could still drink from there. Well, don't forget about how toxic this is to human health. A lot of the stuff that they're putting in the water. And I get it. They already put stuff in the water supply. We get that. They're destroying well water with the chemtrailing they're doing from above anyway. They're making, groundwater very difficult to drink unfiltered. You definitely have to filter all this stuff because of the crap they're putting in it. But this is just another direct attack is what it is. These are quiet attacks on major, if people think about how much we take for granted even having drinking water. And these resources of drinking water, if the grid is down, don't you expect them to think that we're going to go to places where there's prosperous amounts of water. Naturally, people are going to go, we got to go up buy water. They might not figure it out at first, but after a day, even these idiots who don't know what's going on, who believe, are going to need water. And they're going to, they're going to go through their cupboard. They're going to dehydrate themselves with things, not even realizing they're dehydrating themselves. And they're going to go, I don't feel right. They're going to go, I need water. My mouth's thirsty. My mouth's dry. So they're naturally going to go to a lot of these places. Now, there's going to be lakes. I'm not saying that they're going to be able to access everything, but we're talking about major water supplies here, right? So they could easily shut these things off. They could poison these things ahead of time by doing things like this. But they plan on being able to herd you into areas based on food resources being under their control and water resources being under their control. So I love in this story that, by the way, that I played that clip, that their lawmakers are, some of them might pass a bill about, trains carrying hazardous material. Yeah, you think? I mean, does anybody wonder what the government does? Like, really? I mean, we obviously know what they're doing, right? Gaslighting, preparing for World War III or Civil War, all these things that they're doing to us psychologically, taking our rights away, prepping FEMA camps. That's what they're doing. But don't you think something like this, where they're talking about, hey, they're talking in Congress about passing a bill about trains with toxic materials. Shouldn't that have already been in place? Like, and the fact that we're having a debate about will it get passed, they're optimistic it might. Huh? I mean, shouldn't this just be protocol for the course? I mean, there's people out there that go fishing that need a fishing permit, right? Some of these people have to have beyond permits to be able to carry this type of toxic material through our towns. They're just going through our towns. Oh, yeah, there's a train. What do you think? It's a choo-choo train? Now you think it's Thomas the Train Engine? A guy's on there pulling the thing. Woo, woo. It's like, hey, the train's coming through. Hey, I'm in Pleasantville. Right? They have no idea what's on board the train. What do they think it is? Giraffes and clowns, like the children's books? Oh, no, it's just filled with tons and tons of toxic materials that, if ignited, would destroy your air quality, blow up your town potentially. I mean, it's like the same as saying being on an airplane, right? You're on an airplane, you get, if somebody was like, there's a bomb on the plane, everybody would have a stroke, right? Or if they were like, there is an extremely toxic chemical underneath the plane, everyone would just combust on the plane. They'd be so paranoid because they've been programmed to think that, right? But if we were telling you, like, you're in a town, there's a train track that's a mile from your home and it's carrying like anthrax, what do you think the town would do? They'd be like, what if anthrax leaks out of the train? We could all be dead. Yeah, well, they don't tell you this stuff. So we just look at the trains coming through like they're safe. And then they go, oh, yeah, maybe we'll pass some bills to make sure East Palestine doesn't happen again. Wink, wink. Well, month after month after month, there's just story and story and story like this. And they all conveniently are around large bodies of water. And gasoline and soft plastics and all these other chemicals we can't pronounce are just getting dumped into the water. And then they go, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, right? Yeah, because trains just, if you look at the statistics on train crashes, it's like, and of course people don't know because if the news doesn't tell them about it and they just hear a story about it. If the news played this every day, 24 hours a day about this train going in there and the water's contaminated, people would be going nuts, right? Instead, they give you a little, the story on a local, oh, okay, so, in case you drive by, then you have a programmed in, hey, it was just an accident, nobody died. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Right? And you go about your day. And then you go back to, Trump and Biden. Oh, these are the important issues, right? Can men have kids? Right? But if they actually informed you about this stuff, people go, whoa, wait a minute. We're civilians. We live in these towns. We don't want you driving around with these types of chemicals unless, especially when all of a sudden there's trains crashing into each other, derailing with the amount of money that they have, $8.1 trillion Vanguard has, and they can't figure out how to protect their trains and all these chemicals on there. They're just right off. It's not a big deal. It's just crashing. Yeah. It's not a big deal to Vanguard because they're deliberately allowing it to happen. It's called sabotage. It's a big deal to anyone living in these areas. And it's a big deal to, let's just say 15 million people who are relying on the Delaware River to drink water. Right. So they say there's no injuries, the leaks, or leaks of hazardous materials, right? Who trusts anything that these people say? None of us do, right? They tell us diesel and plastics, pellets, are in the water. Well, that sounds pretty hazardous to me, okay? I'm not interested in, I don't go to the gas station and grab the pump and bathe myself in it and then, get a good couple of swigs out of it. Do you? Okay, so do you want it in your water? No, so I'd say that's pretty hazardous. Plastic pellets, do you mince up your Poland Spring bottle when you're done with it and then sprinkle it on top of your spaghetti? No, you don't, right? Because you don't want to eat that. Now, I get it that they put this stuff in the food anyway, but for them to say it's non-hazardous is a joke. It's a joke. And we can only imagine what other stuff is in there. You know what I mean? what other chemicals are in there they'll never tell you about that'll cause people who drink that water to die. They'll never know what it was. They'll never think twice. They'll never think at all and correlate the two of some type of sudden death. So these are just continual attacks. These are the ways that they are targeting us. It's quiet weapons for silent wars. I've been saying it for years. It's an easy, it's very easy to see. And again, you might say, well, come on, man, you're jumping the gun. Trains derail all the time. Oh, yeah? Okay, trains do derail all the time. How many times have we heard in last year? I reported, I think I was doing once a month last year, at least, of stories of, and I could report on it. I mean, my channel's not called Train Derailments for an Uprising, but I was reporting on it only because there were large water supplies affected. Okay? Large water supplies. It wasn't like a train went off the tracks in Timbuktu and the water got dirty in somebody's pond in their backyard. Oh, okay. When it's large bodies of water like this that service hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, in the case of the Delaware River, right? And how many times, too, with the Delaware River? There was something last year, I remember the bridge just blew up right next to the Delaware River. Like, how did the bridge blow up? They were like, oh, bridge blew up. Oh, okay. And what went into the water? Well, there was a truck that was carrying toxic hazardous materials. Oh, how convenient. Yeah, I don't think that. That's conspiracy nut job talk. Oh, okay. So trains don't just derail. And companies like Vanguard, this isn't like some Joe Schmo company that's got a train, okay? It's Vanguard. This isn't like, it's like thinking that you could get a car out on the road that isn't, GM or Ford or any of these big companies. Like it's a freight train, okay? It's a freight train. This isn't some rinky-dink, toy train that we're talking about here. We're talking about Vanguard freight train, okay? The technology, the money they have, these things do not happen coincidentally. Especially, you would think right after East Palestine that it would be like the biggest, all year they'd be talking there if they really cared and that wasn't part of the plan, about making sure it never happened again because people were so upset about it, right? No, just another one happens. Somehow the trains just don't see each other in broad daylight in front of each other. They just run right in like it's the Wild West days, right? I mean, give me a break. What's the next story we're going to hear? One of these freight trains, all the chemicals get robbed. Oh, wait, I did cover that. There was a train last year with all of the missing chemicals that were on the train, right? Literally out of a movie, right? As if somebody just went up to the conductor of the train with a bandana over his face and was like, give us the chemicals of the train or we'll shoot. And then they just took the train as if it was, a bicycle, and they drove away with it. I mean, the stories that they can come up with that people believe is incredible. No one's suspicious, folks. I am, and I know everybody else out there is. We'll see where the story goes. Obviously, they're not going to talk about it anymore. But, we'll see how many more derailments there are around large bodies of water as we get closer to 2030. And we'll see what type of restrictions they put on drinking water in the areas. I thank everybody again for being here on the website. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you, as always, and your families.